Fishing stories. I love fishing stories, but it seems like every time you tell a fishing story, somebody always looks at you like you're exaggerating the part. And there's one illustration in a movie. Have you seen the movie Dave with Kevin Kline in it? Where he impersonates the president, and he goes to this robotics factory, and they're showing him about these new robotic arms that you can put your hands in, and the arms are real big, and they move whichever way, and they'll do whatever task you need to do when you're operating the robotics. And so they invite Dave to put his hands into the arms of the robotics and control the robotics. And Dave says, "I caught a fish this big." And I love that scene because that's the way we tell fishing stories. You know, we catch a fish this big, but by the time we've told the fourth person, it's about this big, right? And so we see in the gospel today, what do we see but a fishing story? And it's a great fishing story. It's a fishing story about when Jesus was teaching the people at the lake, and they were crowding him. The people wanted to be so close to Jesus because of what he had to say and what he was teaching. It was new to them. It was a new way of understanding, and he was healing those who were sick, and he was just teaching a new way, and they were caught up in that they were pressing him. And Jesus looked around the shore, and he saw two empty boats. Now, I want you to grab onto that. What Jesus saw was two empty boats, two available vessels that he could work from. Two available vessels that he could get back from the crowd enough that he could still address the crowd, but he could deliver the message that he needed to deliver. He found a place and a vessel that he could work from to deliver his message. Think about that for a minute. Is your boat empty enough that Jesus can find a way into it and use your boat to deliver a message to the people you're about every day? And in your environment, is your boat empty enough and available enough so that Jesus can step into your boat and push off from shore and accomplish what it is Jesus needs to accomplish that day? I think it's funny, Jesus is doing a teaching and all the people are pressing in, but yet you have Simon who's sitting in his boat washing his net. He's washing the nets. They fished all night long. The nets are dirty and murky, and they probably have moss in them, and they're cleaning them up, and they may have a tear in them, and they're mending the tears. And they're just sitting in their boat, and I'm sure they're exhausted. And I wonder how many of us sit in our own boats, and we're exhausted with what life's given us. We've been betrayed. We've been denied. We've been pushed away. We've been abused, we've been stepped on, we've been neglected, we've been hurt, and we sit in our boats and we wash our nets. And some of us, we've washed our nets for years. We deal with whatever's happened in our life. Our parents have divorced, or our partner has left us, or our children were terrible and we couldn't get them figured out, and they just not turned into what we thought they would be, or life just dealt us a hard blow and we've got family issues, or our church isn't being very nice, or our business place isn't being very nice, our boss doesn't give us the respect that we need. And we sit in our boat and we wash our nets. And we just go over and over again. And I'm sure Simon Peter was sitting there. I've been there. A long day on the lake, and you don't catch a thing, and you just go home and you think, man, I'm not a very good fisherman. I just don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this anymore. And we do the same thing with our lives. People don't love me, just step on me all the time. They don't recognize me for who I am. I don't have any worth. My mom and dad didn't want to stay married. My brother didn't like me. My sisters don't love me. My friends don't want to be around me. How many things can we come up with today in our congregation that we have excuses that we need to wash our nets? Our boat's available, but we don't want to do anything. We just want to sit there and we want to say, oh, woe is me, God. God, I've been dealt this hard life. I don't know how I'm going to get through this life. Some of us, we're to the ends of our lives, and we're just saying, God, it hadn't gotten any better. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough love. We don't have enough affection. We don't have enough attention. And we just say, woe is me, and we wash our nets. And we wash our nets. And what God really wants us to do is make ourselves available. But we're so busy washing our nets, we don't even recognize that God's around. You see, Simon Peter was sitting in the boat washing his net. Jesus was speaking and teaching to a crowd that was trying to push him into the lake. They were trying to get so close to him. Simon Peter was still just sitting in his boat washing his net. He was tired from the day's work. He wasn't paying that much attention to Jesus. Jesus stepped in his boat. Has Jesus stepped in your boat? Has he got into your life yet? Are you willing to open yourself enough to say, hey, my boat's available to you, Jesus? Or are you busy washing your net so much you don't even know Jesus is around? We do that a lot in our lives. We get so distracted with all the things and all. And it doesn't have to be bad things. It's good things. You know, sometimes you get so busy you forget God's around. You think if I'll just serve here, serve there, serve here, serve there, and you wear yourself out, you don't have time. You wash your net for the goodness of the world, and God's not present in any of it. And you're denying God's presence in your life that way. Because you've come too busy for God to just pause for a moment and make a difference in your life so that you can make a difference in somebody else's life. You see, we as people of God, we've got to make our boats available. I was down visiting someplace one day, and it was here in this town, and it's one of the funeral homes, and they have a bass boat parked with all their other vehicles. And I walked into the thing and I said, I don't know what pre-need you're selling, but when I want a pre-need, I want to make sure the bass boat's included in that. The person I was talking to said, anytime you need that bass boat, you take it. It's the way we should be with God, right? We should be available to God at all times. Our boat should be available to God at all times to use us as a vessel to share. You know, we've been washing our nets, all that junk that's been in our net. It's there for a reason so that we can use it to relate to other people. So that we can relate to other people when their parents have been divorced, or when they've been abandoned, or when they've had family strife between the brothers and the sisters, or when their job is not good and their boss doesn't recognize their quality and what they give. You know, you have those things in your life, not so that you can say, woe is me, but that you can say to your brother and sister in the journey, you know, I've been there. And it's going to get better, and God's going to walk with you. Let me share how grace works in your life. And you see, what you do is you invite Jesus into the vessel with you, and you push away from the shore with that person, and you begin to share with them what God has done in your life. That's what being a fisherman is. That's what being a fisher of men is that God empowers us through our availability to making our vessel open to Him. We put away all that stuff that happened in our past, and we live in the present so that we can share God with those we encounter in the future. You see, that's what happened that day on the lake. Jesus got in the boat and He began to teach. And He taught him. When He was through teaching, He turned to Simon Peter, and He told Simon, He said, cast your nets over the side and fish. And don't you know that's the last thing He wanted to hear? He'd been fishing all day long. He'd been playing church all day long. He'd been doing his job all day long. He'd been doing whatever it is God asked him. He thought he was supposed to be doing in his life all day long, loving those little kids, doing whatever he was supposed to be doing. And he was tired. He said, God, I just want to go to my bed and go to sleep. I want to go home. I want to see my wife. I want to see my kids. I want to go to sleep. And Jesus said, just cast your nets. Don't we do that to God? God will ask us to go one step further than what we really want to do in a day. And we're like, done. 9 o'clock. I've been up since early in the morning. I'm out. Right? Turn my computer off. I'm going to sleep. I've had enough. Don't call me. Turn my phone on silent. I'm not answering any more calls. No more text messages. I'm not looking at social media anymore. I'm going to sleep. But God says, hey, wait a minute. There's one more person. There's one more thing I want you to do. Your vessel's empty. I need you for just a minute. There's a person in crisis. There's a person who needs to hear an affirming word that says, I love you. There's a person that needs to know your story so that you can help them out of their story. You know, it's always amazing to me how God works in our lives and takes our personal experiences and puts us in the place with other people that have a similar or going through an experience we've been through, and we can use our experience to offer grace in their lives. Jesus said, Simon Peter, I know who you are and I know what you do. Listen to me. Listen to me and cast your net to the other side. Put out into the... He didn't say in the shallows, did he? The text doesn't say, hey, Simon Peter, we'll just hang here in the shallows and hope we catch some that are on the edge. He said, push off into the deep and drop your nets. See, God doesn't want us to just play around in the shallows of life. God wants us to be involved in the deep, dark, emotional things of life, where we connect as brothers and sisters of God, and it's called love. I mean, I can get to know you and I can call most of you by name because I've met you. But if we don't learn to love one another at the deep level of life, then our effectiveness for Jesus in this world is not going to be near as great as it should be. We should be praying for one another. We should know the hurts of one another. We should open ourselves up to one another so you might have an experience that will help me, or I might have an experience that will help you understand what it is God's doing in our lives together. Because God doesn't ask us to be in the shallow water. God asks us to be in the deep water. Push off and let's go to the deep water, Simon Peter, and let's cast our nets in the deep water. Let's entangle people where they're at emotionally. Let's touch people where they are, not on a superficial level, but let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What happened in your life that stopped you where you are? Why are you washing your net? Why are you stuck where you are? Why? God wants to use us as individuals to help people understand what grace is. And he shows it the best today in Simon Peter. Cast off into the deep water, Peter. Let's go where you are. Let me dig a little deeper in your life, Peter. Let me show you exactly who God is. And Peter says, just like the rest of us, Lord, I'm just tired. I'm tired. My marriage is a struggle. My kids are out of control. My job, I'm sick of working. I'm tired of going to the plant and clocking in. In fact, to tell you the truth, God, retirement just isn't what you said it would be. And we all say that. And God meets us right there and says, cast your net. Cast your net just a little further. Let's go a little deeper. Trust in me. How many of us trust in Jesus for every day of our lives? You know, it's easy to raise our hand and say that, but do we do it actually? Or do we try to control everything in our life so that we're sure that everything's protected and taken care of? And really, you know what? We really don't want to give from the deep. It's easier if we just walk through the shallows of life and not have to give from ourselves. But God says, cast your nets in the deep. Cast your nets in the deep. Give who you are emotionally to other people in a positive way so that you can offer grace. Because what happened was, they began to roll in the nets. And you know what happened? The catch was so great, they couldn't handle it. The catch was so big, the bounty was so wonderful, they couldn't imagine catching that many fish. In fact, they had to call another boat over to them to help them drag in the catch of the day. Do you see what they did there? Jesus worked in a way where Simon Peter couldn't stay by himself. He had to share the message and the experience of what happened in his life right then and right there. How many of us do that? How many of us know that God's moved in our life and God's offered us grace, but we don't share it with anybody? Simon Peter had to call out to the boat across the lake, hey guys, y'all come over here. We can't handle all these fish. This grace is so good. God is piling it on us. We're getting such a blessing. Y'all get over here and join us. We don't do that. We take whatever it is Jesus gives us and we hang on to it and we don't even share it with anybody else. The example today is we're supposed to fish in deep water. We're supposed to get emotionally invested with other human beings so that we can share God's grace with them and show them what a bountiful catch that is. What a bountiful catch that is. I mean, it took 2 boats of men to roll in the fish. They'd been fishing all night and they hadn't caught a thing. Jesus stepped in their boat. He moved in their life and their lives were changed because the bountiful catch of fish. God wants to do the same thing in our lives. I'm not saying you're going to be rich. I'm going to say you're going to be blessed. Because God wants to use you for what you've been through in your life to be a witness to other people, to teach about grace. Because the biggest part of the lesson happens after the catch is hauled in. After God's already done God's work. Jesus has already done Jesus' thing. He's turned it into something you couldn't even imagine. He's changed your life, and God taken that life to places Peter never imagined. He never dreamed he would catch that many fish. He never dreamed he could witness to it. Can you imagine how his chest stuck out when he had to holler across the lake, you guys come over here and help us. The nets are so heavy we can't get them in. He was like, ha! Right? And when they get the fish all in here, here's the most beautiful thing about this whole text. Peter has a come to Jesus moment. Simon Peter. The boastful one, the one who always acts on a whim, the one who I relate to because he sticks his foot in his mouth half the time when he's around Jesus. Because he opens his mouth instead of just being quiet and listening to what Jesus says. He tries to react too fast. But he comes to Jesus and he has a come to Jesus moment. Can you imagine in your life, has God ever just showered you with love? Has God ever just showered you with grace? I remember 22 years ago when I accepted the call to go into ministry that had been on my life all my life. And I didn't accept it until I was 34 years old. And I told my wife that night when we were laying in bed, I told her what had happened and what we were going to do. And there's a little farming community south of Amarillo, Texas. And it's really just 2 county roads where they cross. It's a little town called Wayside. And it has this little concrete Methodist church. And I mean, the whole church building, everything is not even bigger than the sanctuary. And I told her, I said, you know what, I don't care. I just want to serve God. And I know God probably won't make it any bigger than that church right there in Wayside, Texas. But that'll be enough for me. And driving home the other day, we drove through a little community and it reminded me of Wayside, Texas. And I looked at my wife and I said, you remember when I told you I thought God would just use us that much, I'd be happy. And we both were almost moved to tears because we realized where God's brought us in 22 years. And the catch and the blessing that God's used us. An ordinary guy from the Panhandle of Texas. I get to preach the Word of God every Sunday. I get to be invested in people's lives emotionally and in the deep. And I'm just a guy. And that's what God asks us to do, is to do the very same thing. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, but God can work through us. Simon Peter wasn't perfect. But what God doesn't want us to do is God doesn't want us to get stuck washing our nets. God wants us to allow us to let things flow through our nets so that our vessel is open, that our vessel is available so that he can step in the moments when he needs to step in, and we can affect lives in the deep. We can help people change their lives. Because what Simon Peter, he had that Jesus moment and he came to Jesus and he said, forgive me. Forgive me, I am just a sinner. Aren't we all? Aren't we all just like Simon Peter? We're just human. We're not godly. We're just human beings. But God loves us enough to work through us. And Jesus spoke a word into Peter's life right then. He said the same thing he'll say to us. Peter, no longer will you fish for fish, but you will be a catcher of men. No longer will you do what you've known your whole life, but you will now go to work to teach people about grace. He used a common fisherman sitting on the shore washing his net, whose boat happened to be available, and invited him into a moment that was greater than he could ever understand, so that he could take that moment with him and change lives. We all know what Peter did. We all know Peter's story. And it began that very day at the lake when he was fishing. And not only did Peter respond to Jesus that day, but we know that James and John also, and Andrew, they also responded to Jesus that day. Because it says at the very end of the text, and it's a phrase we need to all hang on to. They got up and they left their boats and they followed him. They put their old life aside and they began to live their new life for Jesus. There's a lot of us in this room. We need to put our old life aside. We need to quit washing our nets. We need to quit telling the old story of what's happened to us in our lives and allowing people to feel sorry for us. And we need to start using that story to show how God's moved and God's worked even in this place. That God is shaping us to be a family of disciples who are gathered in grace so that we can love one another through faith, hope, and love. That we can serve beside each other. God is changing us, and we need to let go of the things that are caught in our net. And we need to allow Jesus to come into our lives so that we too can have that moment and say to God, I'm sorry. It's not about me. It's about you. Let's live in the deep. Let's allow Jesus to speak grace into our lives. And let's get up and follow him. Amen.